Now, history was made when Howard University's men's swimming and diving team won the Northeast Conference Championship for the second time in 3 years. Now, when the Bison won the title back in 2023, it marked the first time in 34 years that Howard had won a swimming and diving title. Howard's achievement is especially significant because right now, Howard is the only HBCU left with a Division I swimming and diving team. Howard being the last one standing, or rather swimming, is really counter to the history of competitive swimming at historically Black colleges and universities. As recently as the 1980s, over 20 HBCUs offered swimming as a varsity sport. Notable figures such as Andrew Young and Samuel L. Jackson both swam competitively when they attended Howard and Morehouse respectively. Unfortunately, over time, the number of HBCUs offering swimming as a varsity sport dwindled because of resources, facilities, and interests. But like a lot of things in this country, some of that lack of interest can be attributed to, racism. Now, I learned to swim growing up because my mother is a lifeguard and she swam when she was growing up. But that wasn't the case for a lot of Black kids who are now my age or grew up in my mother's generation or kids now. If you study the history of race in this country, you will find one of the most common vehicles of segregation, white supremacy, and racial violence was the public swimming pool. In the 1930s, the Works Progress Administration was a program created under former President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and it was part of his transformative New Deal. The WPA was an infrastructure program that put thousands of Americans to work to lift the country out of the Depression by having them build roads, schools, and public pools. Up until that point, pools had largely been considered something for the elite and the wealthy. But under the WPA, over 800 new pools were built and another 300 were renovated. And these were elaborate pools. Some had sand, immaculate landscaping, and they were huge. The working class was finally going to be able to enjoy cooling off in style on a hot summer day. Well, not everybody, because this was not a time where America was great for Black people. We were largely ostracized from the Great American Pool Party. While some pools were built in Black areas for Black residents to use, most were built for the comfort and convenience of white people. In the North and the South, there were whites-only pools and segregated pools. White people made it clear they did not want to swim with us. As The Daily Show's Dulce Sloan explains, it was because of needs and, ignorance and white supremacy, but also needs.
Cities didn't build pools in Black neighborhoods, and white people didn't want us in their neighborhood pools. Partially, they were concerned about Black men intermingling with white women in such a sexual atmosphere. I know, it might sound ridiculous to think of a public pool as a sexual atmosphere, but this was the 1920s. They were seeing knees for the first time. I'm talking the top, the bottom, that little knuckle part in the middle, the whole circle. Whew. Have you seen knees? Hot.
Stupid but true. And speaking of stupid but true, the other reason why people didn't want Black people at the pools is because they believe Black people were unsanitary and unclean. Now, there's so many jokes to be made there, but I'm gonna just let y'all have fun with that one. Do your best. At some pools, Black people could use the pools on certain days, and white supremacists also often use violence to let Black people know they were not welcome. In Pittsburgh in 1935, a Black 9-year-old was badly beaten by a group of white kids. When the 9-year-old's mother reported the incident to police, the police officer told her, quote, "Why can't you people use the Washington Boulevard pool?"
I don't believe you people.
Huh? What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
Huh?
St. Louis's first race riot was over a pool. In 1949, white people violently attacked about 40 Black youth who showed up at the Integrated Pool Fairground Park. The white people attacked them with bats, bricks, pipes, and knives. The incident required 400 police and 12 hours to calm things down. St. Louis, though, chose to resegregate its pools after that, and it stayed that way until segregation was legally undone with the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision and the 1964 Civil Rights Act. But rather than comply with the decision or, simply learn not to be racist, a lot of cities and communities instead chose to simply shut down their public pools. As it was, there wasn't a whole lot of public pools that were built in Black communities. And in those communities, particularly the larger cities where there were whites and Blacks, once white flight took hold, a lot of these by default Black communities didn't have a pool. So Black people not only had to deal with not having access to a pool, they also had to deal with the PTSD of being racially traumatized for simply wanting to swim. The lasting effect of that is this: 64% of Black kids can't swim. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 5 to 19-year-olds who are Black are 5 times more likely to drown in a swimming pool compared to their white peers. And Black children ages 11 and 12 were 10 times more likely to drown. Now, this also has translated to overall interest in swimming. Less than 2% of swimmers at the NCAA level are Black. Which brings me back to Howard. Considering how it was dangerous at one point for us to even try to swim, it makes their most recent national championship that much more special. Despite the obstacles and threats our community constantly has faced in swimming or otherwise, it seems we can always rely on one thing: our resilience. I'm Jemele Hill, and I approve this message.